Right, we'll talk more about Trubisky a little bit later. Meanwhile, let's talk about the other unbeaten quarterback, and that is Ben Roethlisberger and his Steelers. And despite the fact that they're the last unbeaten in the league, they are ranked 6th, according to our Football Power Index, our analytics, 3 spots behind the Ravens, who they just beat in Baltimore. And despite that result on Sunday, FPI believes the Ravens are the slight favorite against Pittsburgh when they rematch in Pittsburgh Week 12. And in part because of that, Pittsburgh has just a 2.4% chance of winning out, 4th best in the NFL. FPI likes the Chiefs, the Bucks, and the Ravens as having a better chance of doing that. So let's try and make some semblance of sense of this. How do we do it? Damien Woody, let me start with you. Those are the numbers. You've got the eye test. Are the Steelers the 6th best team in the NFL?
No, the Steelers aren't the 6th best team. Listen, I look at the Pittsburgh Steelers. They have a lot of ingredients of what you want in a football team playing right now. I mean, defensively, they got pass rush. They got 2 outstanding pass rushers. Their defense overall is pretty stout. They got a veteran quarterback that you've seen the impact that he's had on this offense coming from last year when he was out the entire year. They got a plethora of receivers that you can distribute the ball to, veteran offensive line. So to have the Steelers at 6 is it's a little bit head scratching considering they beat the Baltimore Ravens in Baltimore this past game.
Pollock, what do you think?
I hate this. I hate these numbers. Listen, you watch the World Series. We saw that too, right? Let's take our quarterback out of the game. How'd that work out for you? It worked out great. They just beat the Baltimore Ravens. Listen, I'm fine if you don't put the Steelers at number 1. Okay, if you don't put them at number 2, but to put them at 6, this is why I don't look at a lot of these metrics, because they don't make any daggum sense. And, they beat the Ravens. I like what they are constructed-wise. I like the way they play defense. I like how physical they are. I like how Big Ben's playing. So FPI, whatever the analytics say, I guess just yank them out of the Steelers. Y'all might as well quit.
Hey, David, watch out for Dominique, because he's going to come at you about these numbers. He's good with these numbers now.
I'm not gonna come at you about these numbers. I also was confused. I was confused by their rating, but I'm not gonna go so far. David had to go too far. Like, the point of the analytics is that it can show us stuff that the eye test can't show us. Like, that's the point. What's the point of having these numbers if they're just gonna tell us the same thing that we see? I understand that. I agree. I think that they are much better than that ranking. However, they do have holes, and I think one of those holes is we are pretending as if Big Ben is the Big Ben of old. No, Big Ben is throwing short passes and letting his guys make big plays, which makes for a more volatile offense. And that defense is devastating. And I agree, they should be higher than the Ravens, given the fact that they just beat the Ravens. Because I watched that game and it didn't feel like the Ravens deserved to win necessarily. It felt like a pretty close game that the Steelers pulled out. So I'm with you. The eye test tells me that the Steelers are better than 6, but what's the point in having analytics if they're just going to tell us what the eye test tell us? And I've never heard somebody say, I hate numbers. I hate numbers. Numbers aren't bad. Numbers aren't good. They're just honest.
Go ahead, David.
No, they can be skewed any way you want to skew them, by the way, too. And I understand what you're saying, by the way, Nick, about Big Ben, but he doesn't have to be Big Ben of old. He's got a great defense. He's got great wide receivers. He's got a great tight end that he can do what he did in the second half, by the way. Watch the second half. I love it. They go up-tempo. He's making all the decisions at the line of scrimmage. I don't think he has to be that backyard guy that breaks a bunch of tackles and makes a bunch of plays and goes out and wins it for his team. I think he can be a part of this ride and get it to his playmakers quickly and use his brain and his experience, and the Steelers can be deadly because of it.
Can I bring Graziano into this quickly? Because you made 2 points in our meeting this morning, things that the numbers don't necessarily measure, and one of them is about the coach.
Yeah, Mike Tomlin, the coach. When you talk to people in Pittsburgh's building, I mean, Mike Tomlin is a big part of the reason they believe they can be successful this year. It's a strange year. It requires a steady hand to get you through all the COVID-related issues and reschedulings, and the Steelers believe they have the perfect guy to manage that. That's the kind of thing that FPI isn't going to measure. And look, I mean,
don't let the facts get in the way of the numbers.
The numbers are good. No. The numbers are a good tool to have. They're not skewed on their own. It's we, the humans, who do the skewing of them. And the reaon they exist is because humans are imperfect and we can't trust our eye tests fully. So you use them both together. But these games are so close so much of the time. An old special teams coach told me once, that ball is not round and it bounces funny. It's hard to know how much stock to put into a head-to-head win as a measure of which team is better than the other. Yes, it matters, but it's not the be-all and end-all. The Steelers think that they're better than their underlying numbers because of some intangibles, one of which is the leadership of Mike Tomlin.
I will just say this.
Graz, I hate that you're rational right now. Stop being rational.
Yeah, I prefer.
I gotta
you know
be
what?
me.
I'll see that and I'll raise you a dadgum, which I really enjoyed from Pollock. and we're going to need more of that as we go. And frankly, once again, I'm on David's side. Any numbers that add up to them being the sixth best team in the league should be discounted. Meanwhile, let's talk about this guy. Tua Tagovailoa made his NFL debut as a starter in a win over the Rams and barely played. Adam Schefter reported that the Dolphins made him the starter in part because they have the Texans' first and second round picks in a quarterback-rich draft. And so a really important point to be made here is that because of the rookie salary cap, this didn't used to be the case, but because of the rookie salary cap, teams can make a decision to move on pretty quickly from these quarterbacks, as opposed to if you feel you've made a mistake, you have sort of are saddled with that for 5 years as you chase that player. So with that thought in mind, Neek, what do you think of the idea of teams moving on quickly from young quarterbacks?
I mean, I love it. I think that when you are selecting a leader, which is what the quarterback is, the leader of your team, you don't need 4 years to know that someone is bad at their job. You can figure that out pretty quickly, and the sooner you move on, the better off you will be. I think I was a little bit put off by the Cardinals moving on from their first round pick of Josh Rosen to go with Kyler Murray, because in my mind, I was thinking, man, do you really know what that guy is? But if you have him in practice every day and you have him playing in NFL games, you should be able to determine whether he's your guy or not, and you should not let the fact that you made a decision last year inhibit you from making a better decision this year going forward to build your team. So while I don't like it for the player necessarily, I like it as a decision. You don't want to go after this sunk cost fallacy, chasing after a bad decision that you already made.
I get that part of it. There is another side to it, though, D. Wood, and that is I'm old enough to remember a time when developing a quarterback took longer than 1 year, that you couldn't decide. Maybe, yes, maybe there are unique circumstances where you can watch a guy for 1 year in practice and say, okay, he's never going to be the guy. And then you've made just a horrendous mistake in the draft. But how about the idea, D. Wood, that 1 year is not enough time to evaluate a quarterback in the NFL today or at any point?
Sure, Granny, I can buy some stock into that. But hey, listen, with all the other players on this right now on this panel, the one thing we know is you can't fool the players. And, Dominique brought the point about practice and all the things behind the scenes. That's the things that we don't really see, but the coaches and everyone who evaluates these players, they see day in and day out. One of the biggest qualities that you have to have at the quarterback position is being a leader of men. So if you got a guy and you see in practice that guys aren't responding to on game day, guys just not rallying around, that you can get that indication really quick. So I actually applaud the Arizona Cardinals saying, you know what, with Josh Rosen, this is not working. Let's go with Kyler Murray and look what's happening with the Arizona Cardinals right now.
Yeah, that makes sense. David Pollock, I wanted to ask you a slightly different question because much of this conversation is based around Trevor Lawrence. People are talking about him like he's a generational talent. And so any team that might be in a position to draft him, you might say, well, that's an obvious one. But Justin Fields feels like he's coming on strong to me. Is that another quarterback who should be talked about in the same conversation?
Yes, and I know Trevor, according to a lot of people, has separated himself and one of the best prospects they've seen in a while. If you're not watching Justin Fields through a couple games this season, you're missing out. It's a daggum treat, man. He is on fire,
Double
and they are aggressive, and the ball's coming out quick, and the ball's coming out accurately. The ball's spread all over the football field. And by the way, in the new NFL, when you're seeing more quarterback runs and more quarterbacks being successful because they can buy time and make decisions, dude, he can do that as well. So I do think that Justin Fields is coming on strong. And listen, I know Trevor didn't play last week. It has nothing to do with Trevor not playing. It has everything to do with Justin Fields, his accuracy, his decision-making, his build, his thickness, his ability to run. I still think when I'm comparing him, he's a more athletic Dak Prescott. So if I'm looking for a guy like that to build my future around, I think that's pretty daggum solid.
No question. That's 3 daggums, by the way. But one very quick follow-up. I want to make sure I'm understanding what you're saying. Are you telling me that if you were making the pick, you would consider taking Fields ahead of Lawrence as right now?
Yeah, I would start considering that now from what I'm seeing so far. And again, we're only 2 games in for Ohio State, but he's definitely on track to me to just making this decision a lot more difficult than we thought it would be before the season.
Okay, I like that a lot, and that is one to keep a close